Welcome to the channel. In a prior video, I promised that I would talk about what's going on right now in China. So this is that video. China, of course, is pursuing the policy of zero COVID. That's a policy where they're hoping to keep at bay the virus. I don't know how long they're planning on doing that. I'm going to talk about that more. But I want to talk about what's going on now in Shanghai, a city of 27 million people. This city has been brought into complete and total shutdown. People are locked in their homes. They're trapped there. There's a number of reporting that shows that if a child younger than the age of 7 comes down with COVID-19, but the parents or other household members are unaffected, that child will be taken out of the home and taken to a public health facility. If the child is over the age of 7, they'll go to a different central quarantine. So parents are being separated from children. There are all sorts of videos out there showing very, very young children being pulled away from their parents, and a number of people who are deeply concerned about this human rights violation. In addition to that, people are on shutdown. They're in their buildings. They're trapped there. They're not allowed to go anywhere. If a family comes down with COVID-19, we see videos suggesting that even the pets are exterminated. We see that there are dramatic food shortages. Government workers are unable to deliver food to people. Often they're not even allowed to leave their building or their premises or even their own apartment to go get that food. So there are all sorts of delays that are occurring. This is a brutal and dictatorial lockdown. And this is what COVID-0 brings you. I think what's astonishing here is that I don't think there's anybody in the Western world who's looking at this and saying, wow, that looks good. It looks horrible. Everyone will agree it's horrible. But this is the logical consequence of zero COVID. This is where zero COVID takes you. We saw in March 2020, even into the fall of 2020, even into 2021, people were saying in this country, if we only lock down harder, long and hard, if we only lock down for 3 weeks, really hard, the virus would go away. Those claims were erroneous. This is a virus that has a number of animal reservoirs. You need to do at least as much as what they're doing in China, and even more if you wish to exterminate this virus. And it wasn't even possible, I think, by March 2020. There may have been a window, December 2019, January 2020. But by February, I think the horse was out of the barn. It was too late for an eradication approach. The virus would eventually spread, engulf everyone, spread again, spread again. It will intertwine with human beings in perpetuity. What is China doing? I think China is showing you that if you believed in a zero COVID philosophy, this is where it leads you. It leads you to locking people in their homes. It leads you to arresting people who come out of their homes. It leads you to even sort of unspeakable cruelty of separating children from parents if one or the other has COVID-19 and not allowing them to be together. It leads you to horrific detention centers. It leads you to extermination of pets because, of course, pets may be a reservoir and they may not have the resources or to do all the other things that it would take to ensure that pets could be had safely. So they think that the simplest answer, the surest fire answer to exterminate the virus is to exterminate the pets. I think it's terrible. I think that people forget that the Western response, the lockdown, was modeled after China. I think if you go back in the literature and you look at what pandemic preparedness strategies were there, they universally said that lockdown would be unpalatable in free society and that it would not be embarked upon. And that is indeed what happened in a place like Sweden, which was very reluctant to pursue these draconian measures. But of course, the UK, led by erroneous modeling, the United States, led by a few people who were influencing the political appointees, locked down. And we did so. I know people now are denying that we ever locked down. We did lock down. Lockdown means school closures, business closures, restrictions on the ability to gather, closing down parks and playgrounds, taking the rims off basketball hoops, basically shutting down society and making it clear that the policy was to shut down society. And using the force of law for people who violated that. And we saw that in Australia, where they are more likely to use the force of law. And we see, I think, draconian use of law and political power and military power in China, which is the worst case scenario. This is what people who are advocating for in this country would have had us do. Now, they may say they didn't want to do all these draconian things, but this is where it takes you. This is the end game of the logical philosophy that we could exterminate the virus, that we could eradicate it. This is the end game. This is where all roads lead. If you put in charge somebody whose goal was to carry out your policy, it will lead to this. And in fact, it might lead to even more unspeakable things that can be done in the name of keeping this virus away. I truly do not understand what China is thinking. I think for all the limitations of their governance, there are people in office who are and people in power who have a lot of intelligence. I think they should recognize that this is not sustainable, that they will eventually be engulfed with the virus. That they cannot, if they want to participate in a global society, keep the virus at bay. It will come. So I think what they should have done is, of course, vaccinate, starting with the oldest people, going down in age until they pretty much run out of vaccine. They have a lot of vaccine in hand, and they have the ability to manufacture vaccine, the ability to buy vaccine. So I'm not sure what they're doing. I don't understand why they didn't. Well, perhaps to some degree, ZeroCovid contributed to it, because if you have a population like Hong Kong that has largely not seen much COVID because of a ZeroCovid policy, they may be reluctant to be vaccinated, not having seen what COVID can truly do to older people. And then, of course, when the ZeroCovid policy fails, which it will fail, it will always fail, then they will be engulfed by COVID and experience terrible outcomes. So I think that it might even have negative consequences, even done pre-vaccine and giving people a false sense of security or confidence. Right now, I don't know what China's thinking. I think they need to vaccinate vigorously and then end their draconian policies. I think that even their own totalitarian government cannot sustain these kinds of things. When people go hungry, people start to lash out, and it will be harder and harder for them to put their thumb on 27 million people or even more people. I think that what this really shows is an indictment of the failures of many Western public health experts who wanted this response. Now, they never said they wanted this, but what they alluded to and the philosophy that they championed will inexorably lead to this. This is the consequence. This is what it means for animal reservoirs. This is what it means for to really try to halt all spread. It's cruel. It's antithetical. It's not compatible with a free society, and fundamentally, it's not compatible with humanity. Which is why I think even China, they will not be able to keep this away. It will come. The virus will come, and they will eventually all be infected. And the best thing they can do is to make sure they meet the virus with the best possible outcome. So vaccinate older people, improve health. Get everyone's medical conditions under control if possible, try to encourage people to lose weight, but it will come eventually. It's the consequence of being a human being and living, and there's nothing else to it. It's just that simple, that human beings have been here for a long time, and viruses have evolved for a much longer time, and they are highly adapted to take advantage of what it means for us to be human, which is that we have to be close to each other, and we have to breathe the same air, and we have to talk, and we have to interact, and that's what the virus will take advantage of. It's been selected for that for far longer than we've been able to even write or read or anything like that. So it's really had a distinct advantage. Viruses in general, perhaps not this particular virus, which appears to be a bit novel. Interesting. So we have seen, I think, horrible things coming out of China. We have finally, I hope, realized that ZeroCovid is not possible. We have the gridiron dinner showing that political elites are engaging in continued hypocrisy. We have a report out today from the new COVID czar saying that they're going to, quote, follow the science on airplane mask mandates. I'm not exactly sure what science they're following because, as far as I could tell, they actually never funded or conducted any well-done studies to reduce the uncertainty. And as far as I can tell, I'm not sure what sense it makes to have an American zero-COVID light policy on an airplane while the rest of society pretty much is totally back to normal after 1 year after vaccines have been widely available to all adults who want them. I'm not sure it makes much sense. And that if somebody on the airplane is worried, they can wear a respirator-grade mask, and I don't know if they're getting an added benefit from compelling somebody who doesn't want to wear a cloth mask to wear a cloth mask poorly, pulling it down often to eat or drink. So I'm not sure that they get an extra benefit from compelling that, and I am sure that they're likely to make airline travel more and more combative and angry and hostile, and so I think it's a pretty bad policy on the face of it, but I don't understand. They just don't see it that way. So those are my thoughts on ZeroCovid in China. This talk of this new policy, I think it's terrible. But I think people who said we wanted ZeroCovid, but we didn't want this, I think that they are wrong. This is what they meant. They may not have said it, they may not have thought it, but their philosophy will inexorably lead to this. And they were happy to suspend some civil liberties, but where would they have stopped? I think we have to ask ourselves that. And so going forward, if there is ever a problem like this again, hopefully not in my life, but if there ever is a problem like this again, I think democratic societies will have to set clear bounds on what the limits are of public health. What can public health simply not do without a referendum of the people, a repeated referendum to show people have bought in and keep buying in? A repressive state is capable of doing this in the short term. I'm pretty confident that they will eventually fail and they will abandon this policy, but they are showing us, I think, how painful and cruel and horrible zero-COVID is, it's not just a pipe dream. It's a harmful delusion. The people who held it have done us a great deal of disservice. So those are my thoughts. If you like this video, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. Until next time.